Okay, well, welcome again. Good morning, everybody. We got it. I won't be up here long. We'll just figure this part out. All right. So the vision statement, we always go through this at the beginning of every meeting. I'll read it one more time because that's what really we're all about. To develop and sustain a diverse, inclusive, and supportive learning community for coaches and those interested in the practice of coaching, and how appropriate that this session today is sponsored by the DEIB committee. Let's see, any announcements? The biggest announcement is our fall cookout is this coming Sunday, the 20th, 1 o'clock over at Paul and Stephanie's house. Look for the newsletter, either the one that came out last week, which announced it, or we'll have another one coming out soon to remind you of that. And the big news is it's soups and chilies. So if you have any special recipes, look to Mitch to coordinate. Mitch is out of town. He just pinged me this morning, but try and coordinate that way. And just check the newsletter, because I think we had some details coming out, I think Tuesday. Is that right, Mitch? Is coming out Tuesday?
Yeah, it should be coming out. I did put a little note in the chat with the address. We're just asking everybody to bring their favorite dessert or a side. And if you do have a favorite, chili soup, that'd be great. Let me know if you plan on bringing chili or soup. But the main thing is everybody, please bring a spouse, partner, friend, neighbor, fellow coach. It's just going to be a great time. Paul and Stephanie do a wonderful job, and it's just a relaxed, great time to just get to know each other off screen, in person, and just hope that everybody will make an effort to be there. It's just wonderful to be together.
Awesome. Thanks, Mitch. And for those of you in the room who are not logged in and you want to know the address, I'll read it out real quick if you want to write it down, because I know you're not seeing the chat. It's 1117 Hayes Farm Drive, and that's in Summerfield. Yep, Hayes, Hayes, Farm Drive. That's in Summerfield.
Steve, what's the date of that event?
That is this Sunday, the 20th. So October 20th. And it runs 1 to 4.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, we are still looking for a volunteer. If anybody's interested in helping out with hospitality, please contact Mitch so we can have more of these types of events where we bring food and other ideas where we can gather socially. We were trying to do one more Coaches Cafe on the road before the year is up, and we're still trying to find a date that works for everybody. So look for that in the newsletter. And then as a reminder, our regular Coaches Cafe every Wednesday at 5. This Wednesday, we'll have a continuation of this talk. If anybody has follow-up feelings about it and they want to continue, because I'm really excited about it. That's usually how we use the first Wednesday of every month. And that is all from me. Martha, am I turning it over to you?
Yeah.
Okay.
We're just being very, very good morning, everyone. Ray, if you don't mind just going to the next slide real quick. Okay, next one. So quick agenda, our normal agenda, and we'll go to the next one. Couple of hybrid hints. Yes, we are technology challenged a little bit more, and I think we're going to be okay once we stop standing up here at the podium. Also, please just make sure that you're muted unless you're speaking. We are in a new facility. A lot of you know that we just had a little bit of a glitch with CCL, so we're really pleased that the New Spalm Center was so willing to work with us. Please say thank you to the staff as you lead. In the room, we're gonna just do the usual thing. When we go to breakouts, please respect when we come back. And Ray, you've got a hint for people who might be trying to, or having a little difficulty hearing online, do you?
Yes, so if you guys would like captions, there is an option to enable subtitles. There is a toolbar on the bottom of Zoom labeled captions. If you don't see it, you may have to click on the More tab. But just select captions and then show captions, and you should be good to go. If you have any questions, just send me a message.
Okay, so the ability to turn on the captioning. I am really excited about today's program. And we've been working on this for several months. And I'm going to turn it over to Melanie, who has been an incredible partner to work with, and to introduce us, or to introduce our speakers, not us.
I have a question. If I sit in this chair, that ends some of the reverb?
Yeah,
Yes.
I'll turn this off.
My voice is so soft.
Well, you're still going to have to speak up.
I will.
We cannot hear.
Not able to hear on remote.
No, I can't hear.
It seems like the mic got muted.
Right. Can you share your screen with a message that says we can't hear?
Yeah,
Pull the slide down and just
I'm
share.
going to send Martha a message as well. Might be best to just leave that mic that was on.
Ray, is Melanie Wood
Yes.
speaking? Because we can't hear it online. if
They're
she
they're
is.
figuring it out. They're figuring it out. It's muted again, Martha.
Held up. Online, can you hear us in the room?
It's very quiet. The mic that was on previously when Steve was speaking, I think that's best to just leave on.
You should be able to speak into that one right now.
Let's try again. Can you hear me this time, Ray?
It is very quiet. The mic that Steve was speaking into.
There, that would be the problem.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, let's start over. Again, I'm introducing Reverend Robin Mines. Oh, that reverb, sorry. And Ann Morris. And I've already mentioned they share history as linked descendants. One from a family that was enslaved, another from the family that did the enslaving. And this is a really painful truth. And yet they've come together to grapple with the painful truth. And they've cultivated a deep sense of trust, of appreciation, and respect for one another. Reverend Mines and Ann are going to model for us how we can get better at talking about difficult truths and why this matters. We understand that aspects of today's presentation may be disturbing for some of us. So we want you to know that our intention is that every conversation be handled with sensitivity. And as Martha's already mentioned, we've been working on this for many months, and it's been my great privilege to talk to Ann and Robin a number of times and to really hear their story in unusual ways. So these are two very dynamic women. I'm going to stand up because maybe that'll carry a little farther. Reverend Robin Mines is a native of Richmond, Virginia. She served in the U.S. Air Force, and she's an ordained elder in the AME Zion Church with a passion for community outreach and mentoring youth. She has a long career in public service, serving as a president of a civic association, the PTA, and on the advisory board of the Richmond DSS. She's a co-founder and active member of Richmond Together, and she also serves on the executive boards of the Virginia Interfaith Center for Public Policy and Coming Together Virginia. And Ann Morris is a native of Roanoke, Virginia. She's a retired journalist who's worked for daily newspapers in North Carolina and Georgia for 3 decades, and most recently as a managing editor of the Greensboro News and Record. She serves on the board of the Community Foundation of Greater Greensboro. She's chairing the Equity Committee and serves on the Executive Committee. She also chairs the board of Lillian's List, and she's active in her church, Westminster Presbyterian. Ann is a member also of the National Coming to the Table group. Let's give a warm welcome to our presenters.
Just a little closer together. Okay. There you go. And there's your clicker. Whoops. Awesome. We're gonna get this thing going here. All right. Well, good morning, everyone. And we are so grateful to be here, and we really appreciate the invitation. Melanie and I are old friends from church, and when she reached out and asked us to do this, I thought, well, that is just such a kind invitation, and it gave me an opportunity to get Robin back to Greensboro, which always makes me so happy. So thanks again for having us, and we've got a PowerPoint presentation that we'll do first, and then we're going to kind of go into a dialogue, just the two of us. And I think there'll be time for some questions, and then I know you all do breakout sessions, and so we'll pack a lot in this morning, right? So to start, this first slide that you all see here. So this woman here, Emily Taylor Morris, she's my ancestor. She lived at a plantation called the Meadow in Virginia, just north of Richmond, in the 1800s. And with her husband, she enslaved dozens of people, including
ancestors, Guy and Martha Mines, my ancestors. And our families are linked through the painful history of enslavement. But we are coming together, healing one another, and hopefully helping others to heal in this situation.
you want to talk about your story a little bit?
Okay, I'll
Yeah,
give them a
you go
little bit of
first.
the background of me.
Yeah.
Born and raised in Richmond, Virginia. As a young child, I learned by the age of 5 that people wanted me dead because of the color of my skin, because of attacks on my home. We were attacked by the Klan. My home shot up. By then, I'd witnessed police brutality, so I was afraid of the police. But fortunately, I was raised by a village that knows the Lord. And by God's grace, we survived it, and I came out of it not hating, but loving others and finding forgiveness, because that is the only way we're going to make it.
And I grew up the other end of the state in Roanoke. We're 1 year apart in age, so we're growing at the same time. I knew that my family had enslaved people on a plantation in Virginia. I knew that growing up, but it wasn't really until, I would be honest with you, until really the depths of COVID 2020, where after the murder of George Floyd and that period of sort of public grappling with our history, that I decided to get really serious about investigating my family's history. I knew that there had been enslavement, but we had been told a lot of myths when I was growing up, that my family we were the good slave owners. We were the nice ones. I was literally brought up that way. And even when I went to school in Virginia in the 1960s and 70s, I learned a lot of myths. I was taught that, Robert E. Lee was a hero. We worshiped Robert E. Lee. I was taught that, slavery was kind of a necessary evil, and that, it was really downplayed. So what happened on my journey was in the spring of 2022, I decided to go on a civil rights pilgrimage with a multi-faith group from Greensboro. And it was very powerful. And on the way home, I think it was sort of a God thing. I happened to be sitting next to a woman I didn't know who had been on the trip. And turns out she was a genealogist. And I was telling her the story of my family a little bit. And I said, the more I've learned, the more I've gotten curious. And I wonder if it would ever be possible to meet some of the descendants of the families who my family enslaved. And she said, this is exactly the sort of reparative genealogy work that I do. So that was incredible. And so from then on, I kind of set off on this quest and pretty quickly met Robin. And I think what happened next over the course of the next year was really nothing short of a miracle. Through Karen's research, the genealogist, and through our own connections, we were able to expand the circle of what we call linked descendants, who people are linked by history, if not necessarily by DNA, but by our history. What am I doing wrong here, Martha? The answer to that. I could just do this. Does that work?
Well, it was working.
It was.
We tested that one. Oh, whoops. Let's get off of that.
Oh, there it is.
There you go.
Wire. I don't know why your toolbar is still up there. Anyhow,
Is it?
there you
Okay,
go.
Okay.
We got it fixed.
Yay. Yeah.
You mentioned that civil rights journey.
Yeah.
NCCJ is planning on doing a similar civil rights journey
Yeah.
next spring. And so I was on it in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
But anybody who wants to or is interested, NCCJ will be getting information out shortly about that. It visits Montgomery,
Yeah.
Atlanta,
Selma. Right. Exactly.
And it's quite a journey.
It's
So-
wonderful that NCCJ has taken that over and this is sponsoring that. I think that's fantastic.
And we are confident that those of you online did not hear what Ronnie had to say. So what she was talking about was NCCJ and the Civil Rights Tour. And ping Ronnie if you have questions.
That's okay. So once we connected with each other, with Robin's help and the help of the genealogist, we sort of got together an initial core group of white cousins and Black linked descendants. And this is a meeting of our very first lunch. And it really was remarkable in the sense that we very quickly got into some hard conversations.
Yes.
But there was a feeling of immediate trust and shared interest in pursuing this together, and openness, a real generosity of spirit. So over the next 9 months, we developed a team, and we decided to bring together a larger group of linked descendants and hold an event. So this is where that whole idea was initially birthed. So this is the house where my great-great-grandfather lived. This house is called Glamorgan. It was the house that was built. I told you, you met Emily at the beginning. This is Emily's son, built this house in 1850. So the man who lived here, Dr. Barton Morris, was my great-great-grandfather. And he and his wife enslaved dozens of people here as well. And an interesting aside about this property is no longer in the family, but fortunately the woman who lives there now was kind enough to let us use the property for our event. So it was really important to us to be able to use the exact land, the same location for our event. An interesting aside about this property is that later this land, the Meadow Plantation, was where Secretariat was raised. It became a famous horse farm. So interesting. It has a very interesting history. So we were able to use this property for our event. And one interesting thing to know, you can see on the map here sort of where this is. After emancipation, many of the formerly enslaved people settled nearby because it was at that time it was very, it was hard to travel and they didn't have resources. So they formed a community nearby, and the community is called Dawn. And that's where many of Robin's cousins and relatives live still today. So that was important, that this property is still, there's still a lot of geographical connection between these two, the two sides of this history. I'll turn it to you.
All right.
Uh-oh. There we go.
First of all, I was very excited to hear from Ann and the rest of the folks in the group, because I was already involved in racial healing and reconciliation with my organization, Coming Together Virginia. And I'd also done some extensive study while in seminary. So this is a path that I had already been on. And when I heard from them and their idea, it was like, wow, okay, this is great. So after meeting and planning, we started reaching out to relatives. Facebook was fantastic because we didn't have a lot of connections as far as phone numbers or addresses. So through calling cousins, messaging people on Facebook, the word got out. And we ended up having this fabulous event with about 180 people attending. We had enough food for 2 armies, a great meal. We had some great storytelling. People came together and shared. There were some relatives on both sides of the fence who were a little reluctant, but some came anyway. And they were so glad that they did. It was such a blessed event. There was so much joy, and the way people connected and got along and really embraced the stories that were told. It was just fantastic. We had family trees, but how many tables? 8 tables. One of the family trees was 14 feet long. And it was fantastic. And people were really excited because they actually got to see the names of our ancestors who were enslaved, and also found out some other things about the family that we didn't know. You know how when family trees come out, it's like, oh, okay, didn't know that. So we learned some interesting things. Karen Skelton was just awesome with her research, and she was so great with everybody and having information and helping us find even more beyond what we saw in the trees. So it's just been fantastic.
Talk about Sonny?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. So one of the most interesting things was who on both sides, who we sort of met along the way. So through Ancestry, I connected with a third cousin of mine who lives in Taos, New Mexico. I'd never known her, never knew she existed. And I found out, that we were connected through Ancestry, and I'd messaged her and I said, by the way, I think we're third cousins and we share this ancestor, and do you want to participate in this linked descendant work that we're doing? And she was like, oh, I don't think I'm related to you. I've never heard about any of this. I was like, Yeah, we are. We really are. And you do trace your history back to this plantation in Virginia. And yeah, your ancestors were enslavers, which was new to her, new information to her. So it's been quite a journey, and we've become really close. And we've realized all the ways in which our lives have been parallel and had sort of really close intersections, but we never knew of each other. We have some of the same family stories that we carried down, but we didn't even know. So but this has all been new to her. So at the event, we all took turns sort of telling our stories a bit. So we're going to let you hear a little bit from her, because this is very emotional for her. You can imagine, to have this information come to you kind of a little bit later in life.
I'm here today in part to acknowledge that my ancestors did enslave the ancestors of most of you, as well as of others, and for much of 2 centuries, and that the enslavement must have been horrendously violent, physically, emotionally, and psychologically. And that although slavery ended 158 years ago, a profound violence toward Black people continues, and it is anathema. I'm aware that without meaning to, I have benefited from our country's racism and at times contributed to it by acts of omission, failing to speak when I should have spoken, failing to give when I should have given. I believe that ultimately, who I am is a result of my actions, that my own happiness or unhappiness is dependent on my actions rather than my wishes. I believe, along with Dr. King, that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality. I can't undo what has been done, but I can pledge to do what I am able, in every way that I'm able, to help repair what has been broken in the great circle of our human lives together. May it be so. Thank you.
Oh, the meal. It was fantastic. We're talking fried fish, chicken, smoked chicken, dozens of sides. I just can't even mention them all. And then we had a huge Meadows Family's cake that we all shared in for our dessert. Our genealogy tables took us back to the 1700s. So we learned quite a bit of history thanks to Karen Skelton. We also we were able to contact Karen. She offered her services so freely to anybody who contacted her and wanted to know more information, or she was also looking for some names to fill in some blanks. And so the exchange with that has been great. And we also got more relatives who wanted to get on board because they heard about how things were. And so that helped change the mindset of some folks, because they realized it was a sincere and real event, and it wasn't something just haphazardly thrown together. A lot of thought went into it, and I just want to thank Anne. She is so generous and kind and organized, and you know she is. She'll tell you she isn't, but we really appreciate all her hard work.
Another a feature of the day. So there are the pictures of the genealogy tables. See how long some of those are. Yeah, the question was, why are they so long sideways? I think that was the way that she chose to present them because of just the nature of this event. Yeah.
Before the plantation, where you come from outside of this country.
In my case, I knew that history. My family is originally from Wales, my dad's side, the Morris side. We were not able to get, that's a goal, to be able to get all the way back.
But through ancestry, a great many of us have Nigeria DNA, amongst others, because Great Britain as well, and also Scotland. So we're kind of a mixed bag of tricks there, which is a great thing.
So we had a time, there was a lot of events during a lot of, program, but we also just kind of had a time for people to stand up and tell stories at this event. And I'm just going to mention briefly a few of them. The woman there in the red, the older woman there, her name is Eloise Romaine, and she's 96. And she told a story about actually coming with her mother to work at this house, this big house, Glamorgan. Her mother was a domestic worker there. So she remembered, going back decades, 90 years, when her mother actually worked there as a maid. On the top right there, Alvin Mines, who's Robin's cousin, he told a story about growing up there in that Dawn community and playing in the woods kind of near this house, Glamorgan, because there's a lot of open land and there's a lake and there's a cabin down there in the woods. And we have been investigating what this cabin was. And there's a possibility that this cabin was used during slavery, was a home for enslaved people. And he was just telling the story about just playing in this old cabin in the woods and not having any idea that it might have this history and connection to his family. It's really powerful. And then finally here at the bottom, Joe Brown, who's really an elder and just kind of, I don't know, what would you call him? Like just
history
guru of the family, right? Guy who organizes all the family reunions. He got us all in tears when he talked about how when his ancestors lived on this plantation and were enslaved, they weren't allowed to read and write. That was the practice during slavery. And then he started naming, he looked around the tent and he started saying, and here's my nephew, Chip. Now, Chip lives in Washington, D.C. He's an attorney, he went to UVA law school. And here's my cousin so-and-so, and he's a doctor. And just naming members of the family and their educational achievements today and how far the family had come. And it was very poignant.
After this beautiful event that drew people from as far as California, that's fantastic. It's amazing, I think. We started discussing what the future looks like. First of all, we had a after session at Randolph-Macon University where we had healing circles, and we had facilitators from Coming Together Virginia, and had different questions that we were able to answer. And each of our groups were diverse. And so people felt open and able to express themselves. So we had some great group discussions. It was just amazing how we were able to come together with that. And we just talked about keeping in touch, collected information from one another so that we make sure that everybody has a contact. In the picture here, we had Mike Mines there sitting there. He's also a cousin of me, former FBI agent. And as Ann spoke about Joe, how proud he is of so many accomplishments by family members, in spite of the fact that they were oppressed and shut out of so many circles and information, that we thrive anyway. And so after this gathering, this is a picture of the committee here at the Glamorgan event. And from there, we started some projects. The first one, we did a Ubuntu gathering a year following the big event. And my idea was to bring the community together, crossing denominational and complexion lines, and unity, and not just our relatives, but the whole area, and showing them how strength in numbers can make a difference, and how they can come together on their political differences and what's best for the county and what people need. We also have a cemetery project with cadaver dogs and experts from the University of North Carolina who are canvassing the area, and they've alerted on some things. And so we're researching that right now as well for those unmarked cemeteries where slaves were just pretty much discarded and forgotten about. So that's what's in this picture here.
Rob and I, we've been fortunate enough to speak to several groups, and I've done that independently, and she's also done that. So part of our mission is to share the story, and to talk about sort of this model, because it really is a movement around the country of linked descendants coming together and saying, how can we reckon and make and move toward healing and repair? And what is our role, you know, particularly I think as white people in engaging in this work. Part of the work also of white people is the fact that we are the ones with the records because of just the nature of history. So in my case, I knew that there were these old documents in an old piece of furniture that I had inherited. It's actually my brother's house. But I never really had like, oh, I wonder what's in there, you know, I never paid any real attention to it. So through this project, I was inspired to spend a weekend going through it and scanning and digitizing it all. And what's important about that is that you find history that's important to the African-American families because of slave ledgers and wills and deeds and documents that are part of the puzzle as they try to put together their family histories. And we are the ones who own them. And so one of the things that I found was this document that you see here, which was a bill of sale that my great-great-great-grandfather purchased a man named George Iverson, which is very unusual in those days to have a first and a last name for an enslaved person. So that was fairly remarkable. But what's even more remarkable is, thanks to the genealogy work, I know his descendant, and I was able to return this document to him. He was actually at our event, the descendant. So now he knows this piece of his history, as painful as this document is. And I wish I didn't own it, and so, you know, but I do. And so now it's shared, and it's part of the puzzle of his family story. So anyway, if any of you all are in the situation where you have family papers and whatever, I encourage you to dig them out and look at them and digitize them. They're important. They're important.
Right. One of our linked descendants, Catrice Roots, is a videographer in Richmond, and she started a documentary filming, and she began with Mrs. Price, whose grandfather, George Tillman, bought 16 acres of land in Dawn in the years after the Civil War, and the family still remains there. So that is really fantastic.
So we'd like to close this just with this question that we're teeing up for our discussion, which is that where will your difficult conversation lead you? You sort of see where it's led us, having these difficult conversations, and because we love difficult conversations, we're gonna try to have one right now, right? Yeah. So we're gonna start with some questions for each other, and just try to have a conversation, and then we'll love to hear your questions. So my first question to Robin, and this is a very honest question that I still have in my heart, is that, you know, 160 years ago, my ancestors enslaved your ancestors, right? And then you were tormented, taunted, attacked because of your race as a child. Why would you want to have this relationship with me and as a linked descendant and do this work? I mean, how can you find this in your heart? Robin was the first to say to me, I love you. And it was so moving to me. It was so incredible. And it still is really moving to me that you can find that in your heart. So how do you do that?
Well, first and foremost, my faith is my strength. And as I stated before, I was raised by a wonderful village of God-fearing people. And in spite of my parents growing up during Jim Crow and me being born into Jim Crow, I was taught that it's not all people that don't look like you, first of all. unlike some relatives that were taught a little bit different because people let anger grip them and control them. And that is something we as a country has to look at and stop allowing fear to guide our steps. When meeting Anne and the rest of the Lake descendants, it brought some joy to me because, like I said, my faith, Jesus is for all. God loves everybody. He created us all. So how can I hate you for something that occurred 160 years ago? And I'm only 66. So let's do the math here. So I was never enslaved. My parents, nor my grandparents, but my great grandparents were enslaved. And I know and I feel in my heart that they would not want me to hate. Because my theory is you never take on the mentality of the oppressor. Anne is a sister through faith. And we have to stop this race division, which was created by man. We're all different complexions, but we're not different races. We are the human race. And this is something we have to figure out as well. Human race with the same human needs and desires. We want what's best for our families. We want good health, to prosper, and to be treated equally. Everybody wants that. And this is where we have to come. And there's a scripture, Micah 6:8. I'm not going to try to quote the whole thing, but God has told us what is right. And it's up to us to do that. And when I think about that, I realize that those who were oppressed have to forgive, and the oppressors have to acknowledge and understand what reciprocity is. Understand that it's going to take radical forgiveness, radical love, intentional actions of justice to make things right. No, we can't erase history, and there's no way we can even cover the cost that it has damaged. But in order to start the repair, we need forgiveness, radical love, and opportunity to come together and not expect. I've told this Ann all the time, I don't expect you to dot every T, cross every T and dot every I, because we have to realize that Europeans are victims as well as those who are oppressed in this country, because you've been conditioned to feel that you're superior and that you're entitled. And this is another thing that has hurt us badly. But fortunately, in this room, and I've been able to meet quite a few people who don't feel that way, but are not sure how we turn things around. And that's enough inspiration for me. Okay, let's talk about having difficult conversations. You and I have had a few. When it comes to topics like race, it can be hard to take that first step and be vulnerable. We're all afraid of saying the wrong thing. What guided you, Anne, and inspired you to be able to have those difficult conversations?
I think, first of all, I need to say Robin's, as you can see, her openness, her generosity of spirit, her willingness to forgive. You made it easy. You made it easy, and that wouldn't always, maybe be the case, but you did. When I would be trying to figure out how to say something or be worried about saying the wrong thing, you would say, "Hey, it's just me. It's just me. It's, I'm Robin." Like, you made me very comfortable, and so that empowered me to step into, being more curious, more truthful, to speak with more bravery, I think. But I also personally, I just feel like this is my work, with my family history and the privilege that I have enjoyed, some generational wealth, some white privilege, that I want to be a good ancestor. That's my goal. I want to be a good ancestor. And I have two daughters in their 20s, and I really want to pass on to them the truth, not the myths, right, that I grew up with. I want them to know the truth, and I want to model to them what it looks like to be part of repair. So I feel like it's my personal journey and very much my personal work. I do feel like I've gotten so much more than I've given during this work. I mean, it's been such a blessing to me. Okay, so you and I have talked often about the idea of truth telling, which we're committed to truth telling in all sorts of ways. So, you know, I know for me, like I said, it's important to pass on these truths to my daughters. In today's world, the subject of how American history should be taught is quite controversial. I know you all know this. So can you talk about the importance of truth telling and the connection to healing?
First of all, in times like these, boy, do we need some more truth telling. Because we hear so much misinformation and just flat out lies that are used to divide us and used to tear our country down. When you hear the truth, especially when, like Sonny's story, Ann gave her story, Kate, listening to these stories and heartfelt messages of how our history had affected these women and men, and it helped us to see the human side. Because when you talk about race, it's so easy to crawl into that corner and think it's us against them. No, that's not the case. And so hearing the stories and them being authentic with us really helped. And then we had some people who later on that visited that weren't on the program, but they ended up sharing their stories at the first event as well as the second event. And so when you hear truth, it's something that gives you strength and encouragement. And it helps you to see, like I said, the human side of those who you thought were your enemy. Because we all know our enemy is in the realm. It's not people walking on two legs. Those are just people who are guided by fear, mistrust, and they just don't understand. And one thing I share with people is by me going into the military and leaving home and traveling all around, I got to know so many different people. And yes, I ran into racists, but some of them I was able to engage and talk about some things, and that really helped me as well. And some are just going to stick to what they know. But if you think about it, the people around you who never left their town, who never experienced anything outside of their circle, it's difficult for them to get a grasp of big picture. And so what we're doing, trying to reach out to people and letting our light shine, which I decided was our theme song. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. And that's what we all have to do to be intentional. We have to realize that we can't just live in a society where we avoid violence because and come get along because we don't have any choice. We have to be intentional with actions of justice and work together with one another because we want to. It's a choice. We have to choose this. And that's what I chose early on in life. Even as a child, standing up for the underdog or going against the bullies. I was always in trouble for taking up for somebody in the neighborhood. Drove my mom and dad crazy, but I just never could help standing up for somebody who's getting taken advantage of. And so
Melanie says we have 3 minutes.
Oh.
So we'll do the last question.
yes. Knowing what you know about our family's history as enslavers and getting to know your linked descendants, how has it changed you? Has it changed you, how you view yourself, your responsibility? What actions are you taking to be a part of repair?
I think, as I mentioned, for me, it has changed me a lot. I think it's made this history that I knew about intellectually personal, right? My part of this history of our country, I feel like I'm part of it. And that I have a responsibility to do something about it. That's become very personal to me. So what am I doing? So, we're devoting time to this Linked Descendant project. It's a joy, but it's a commitment. I'm very intentional about how I spend my resources, my volunteer time. It's really kind of become all about repair to me. That's sort of become purpose, I guess. And I try to bring the values and this gift that this work has given me to bear kind of wherever in all aspects of my life. And I think the truth is that, I am so much richer and deeper and more whole as a person now. And I do hope that, someday somebody, will say that she was a good ancestor. That's my goal. I'm trying to live into that.
And I like to end with one of my favorite quotes by Jürgen Moltmann. Hope is produced when people engage in acts of liberation and justice, reminding people that they are human.
Well, I want to thank you, Robin and Ann, for sharing. We have a few minutes now to hear some questions from the group and from the group online. And I'd like to start with the group online. If someone has a question they'd like to pose to Robin and Ann.
I have a question. This is Sherry Abernathy. I'm always curious about the last names, because, as enslaved, our names were changed to the enslavers. And so in your community, how did that work? Because I see a lot of different last names. That wasn't the Meadows. So how would some of those descendants work?
Well, growing up, we always heard there were two sides of Mineses. And what happened was some folks just took the name because they did not want their enslaver's name. So that's how it got to be so many of us. But at the same time, we ended up linking. So a lot of us are related, but it's not like we thought growing up that there were two sides, because my grandmother and my grandfather had the last name Mines, but they were not related. But it looks like, but because people decided, well, this is going to be our name. And we ended up learning that, because for years we didn't know that was the case.
But there are African-American Morrises.
Yes.
Who trace that name back to their enslaver. So some kept that name and passed it down. Others chose different names, and even there were mines who brought that name to the plantation when we don't know yet where that came from. That's a mystery. We're searching for where that name originated.
Okay, thank you.
Is there another question from the online group? Then let's turn to the room. What questions do we have from the room?
I have one very specific. Reverend Mines, you named the emotion of anger that you needed to get rid of. You needed to, I had a friend who used to say, if he was a Black man, he thinks the angriest person on earth, right? And I think getting rid of anger is really hard. And do you have an emotion that you associate with what you need to do?
Do I? Oh, okay. So you're asking if there's something comparable.
Anger. Yeah, I heard the emotion of anger. Maybe.
Yeah. Okay. For me, shame. Shame is very much the emotion, I think, being a descendant of enslavers and privilege. So I've had to work through that. And I think shame is not productive. It's not productive. It doesn't move us forward. So I think I've had to, and part of that's just the acknowledgement, the truth, and doing something about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the emotion that was in my mind, but I didn't want to assume.
No, you're right.
And the anger part, it's okay to be angry, but it's what you do with it.
Yeah.
For the benefit,
Repeat the question.
Sorrel, go ahead.
yeah, for the benefit of people online, could someone repeat the question coming from the in-person audience that we can't hear online, please? That the people are responding to? Thank you.
Thank you, Harrell.
And you have a question?
They need to repeat just to be.
Okay.
Do you want to repeat mine?
Oh, yeah. So Ronnie's question was, if I had an emotion that was comparable to Robin's anger that she had to work through, what did I have to work through? And I said, shame.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. much for sharing your story and sharing kind of how this evolved. It's fascinating, and I feel fortunate to be listening to it. So thank you for sharing it. My question is, I don't know if this happened in my family. My family doesn't like to talk about things like anything emotional in our family. How would a person who has that kind of family find out something like this? Do you have any suggestions about that?
So the question was, what's your name? I'm sorry.
Kathy Securos.
Kathy doesn't know whether her family has a story like this around being enslavers.
We had farming in our family, large farming.
They had large farming.
It was up north, so I don't know.
Oh, okay. But her family doesn't talk about these things. So how would you investigate it? It's really easy nowadays because all of this stuff is online. I mean, it's very easy to find out if you know the names of some ancestors, whether they were enslavers. I can give you the specifics maybe afterwards, but all of this is, the great thing is all these records have now been digitized. And so it's really quite easy to research. You go back to the 1850 census and it'll show. So, yeah.
Where would one start if they wanted to? Is it just a simple Google search, or you got to go to Ancestry and start there?
Yeah, so the question was, how would you start? Would you go to Google or do you need to go to Ancestry? Ancestry is a good source, but you don't have to. You have to pay for Ancestry. There's a great website called Family Search, which is free, and that's where I would send you to. That it has all the census data digitized, and if you have a name and you have a location, you can search for that person.
Well, I'm going to thank Ann and Robin for responding to questions, and thank you for your questions. But we're going to get ready to go into breakout sessions. So as we do that, we're going to be breaking out online.
Come in between the two of them so that the people online can see.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ray is going to divide the online group up into groups of 3, with each with a facilitator. So before we begin, let me just name our facilitators. Online, we have Dr. Harrell Roberts, Dr. Sherry Abernathy, and Kate Weinberg. And here in the room, our facilitators are Linda Reese, Linda Heyman, Jane Walters, Joyce Richmond, and myself. So I want to give you some ideas about how to use your breakout time. We're going to be shifting from this particular story in breakout rooms to what is our uncomfortable truth. Because it's really necessary. It's a human endeavor to come to terms with what we find most difficult to talk about, and to be able to do that with vulnerable, honest discussion. So the difficult truth that might be for us to come to terms with, it could be a broken family relationship. It could be that your neighborhood is in conflict over something that arises regularly and it seems unresolvable. It could be a long-standing work dispute with a colleague. But whatever it is, it seems that no one can find a way to address the painful truth and to move towards some form of reconciliation or simply get to better understanding. So going into breakout groups, we're going to suggest that you use your inner guidance as to exactly how you want to participate. We're also going to ask that you honor confidentiality in the groups online and the groups in the room. So I'm going to ask now that Ray, you take over online and put those folks into breakout groups. And here in the room, let's divide up into groups of 3, and then a facilitator with each group, and maybe each table can hold 4 people. Let's do it that way. And then Robin and Ann, Martha's going to get a chance to sit with you and learn some more.
Okay, great.
Okay?
Great.
We have 25 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, you too.
Pardon me while I just
Hello, Kate. It doesn't seem like Barbara is here.
Okay. All right.
Hello, Kate, can you hear me?
Yes, yeah.
Hi.
Good.
It seems like Barbara isn't here, so I'm gonna try to reassign someone else. for you.
Okay. Sure.
Give me 1 second.
Okay, thank you.
Ray, are you okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Hold on. Yeah, Kate, if you could just let Liz know that I'm going to be assigning her. I cannot speak with her on this, so just when she joins you, just let her know I had to move her because you don't have anybody, okay?
Okay, sure, sure. Shall I send
All
her a
right.
chat? Just send her something on chat.
Yes. I'm gonna go ahead and just yoink her. Oh, I feel terrible. All right, go ahead and join your breakout room.
All right.
It should be there.
Okay. Can you put me back in it again?
If you could just
How do I
highlight
turn
on
your
the bottom breakout rooms.
How do I turn your volume down?
No.
On the bottom of your screen, do you see breakout rooms?
No.
Do you see the more tab?
That button?
Yes.
Down?
Click on that and then breakout room should be there.
Hey,
Right.
Ray.
Oh, I
Hi,
wasn't-
Liz. Hi. We're missing somebody for Kate, so I had to move you.
Perfect.
Oh, okay.
That's perfect. Thank
She
Gotcha.
was
you.
alone.
There was nobody else there. So go ahead and drop me back because I thought I didn't know what happened. Thank you.
Yeah, if you could click on the breakout rooms on the bottom.
Hold on, let me make my screen bigger.
This should
And
be
can
it.
you let them know why I left?
Yes, of course.
Okay, thank you.
Do you see it? There we go. Kate, did you leave?
No. Liz and I with Corral. The group of four.
Can you put us into group 2?
Sure, I can do that.
Thank you. We just think that'll be more productive.
I do too. Thanks.
Rolling revision.
Oh, yeah, you can't, it's nothing to play with.
So do you all, how often do you use? For the link you sent us. Monthly, we meet monthly on Zoom.
Right.
So we have all these complex projects.
Text or phone call, or they're in town.
Yeah, but in terms of events, maybe yearly. We hope.
And the younger ones, and actually being able to walk the land where our enslaved ancestors told, and having a cabin. Show me. Show me.
Some of us have like and Mike has, his kid, so we're hoping we're trying to reach out to them that this will become something that lives and then this documentary, and collecting apps. And these are people. Stories. That's a really big one.
Even as on the
It
shore.
really doesn't look like.
He's the second.
Cover it up, pull it out, pull it out, forget to get that. Really essential to go back to what you did before. Just because
we all
don't get it. They also realized there was send off oh, I know, that's enough for me right there. The man that he played was
there was that time where there was fusion so I just saw them. Oh, I think I've got that too. We were talking about that, we talked about that last night. I'm bad on names. So I just texted that to my husband. I'm gonna get like this big question back from him. It's like, huh? That's what we're gonna watch tonight, honey. We learn how far. And I feel like.
Did I tell you or did I tell you? See the big question? Yeah, I was. When your whole mental framework develop over time, it's something different. It makes it tough. Very, very, very tough. And because they don't really take the time to appreciate the fact that at the end of the day, we're doing the same thing. We do. And we don't have to but we don't know.
We both have birthdays at the same time. We had to last night. We had to share his birthday. And so we said, you know, so we each blew it out together. And she said, you're not supposed to say what you wish for. We did. And you said, call us. I can say wish. I know. So when I share my mine's actually July. Mine's today. Oh, no, happy birthday. Happy birthday. Good way to be spending our birthday. That's what I thought. Yeah. So you're a Libra. I am. Yeah. So I have this.
But when I got to school, they went to one set class.
That's a lot.
With this group, you know, and then, I had to make sure so, you know, that's kind of a different set of things that you navigate.
I think the day was, I am 13 years.
Lead these guys to pick up the skills.
And my mother said, yeah, 2 years and years and years ago. And I used to like something.
How about this year, maybe that was probably the moderation, that would be the.
But they're giving it somebody. You know what I'm saying? But it's this, I agree. You know, and it was never designed.
So what else are you doing on your project?
Tonight, we're actually going to Village Town with some friends. Yeah, there's a bunch of them right. That's the next one.
you all actually sharing your experiences.
What about you? So I'm just gonna some plan up to sleep. I don't know what it is. But we're doing something. But you're right, Monday there is a lot of this was my birthday. And then this right now. You're gonna get some good stuff for you. I still have to just.
So far, I have not been able, I'm not you know, we have a workforce, right, that's really not being considered by the state. Yes. That's right. So when you hear numbers like 20, 30, you know, this will be the first shot at white people, that has put fear in folks for at least 20 to 30 years. But it was a record. And they were saying, you know, we have to celebrate cities, but it's we have a young lady who works and she was I mean, this girl walked in one day and said, this is shut down, good job. Let's scramble. That's right. I don't have any concern. Somewhat about personally, yeah, you know, and how to decide and again, it would be going to help. When everybody's Yeah, I said, but I know like this. It's just that conversation. I know. People, feedback. So is highly offended and will think you'll ever have to back. That was just, that means you was never really serious. You thought it was a good idea to have somebody come have this discussion. Really, because for me, we've had so many discussions and conversations. It's what are we going to do? What are we going to do? It's not my job to educate you on the issue. I can give you do that. But when we come to the table, right, especially with the
Yeah, you start seeing people meeting. And actually, if you want, I can put your computer up here. Would you rather stand? I would like to stand. We're going to keep using your computer. Is that okay? Oops.
You can stay right there. And I think we'll be able to hear you in the room.
In the room, yes.
How about if we bring them here? And then, but I would need to put that back down. Okay. We'll see. Because we're going to get some feedback from them at the very end.
We are? Okay. Okay. We'll figure it out.
Okay.
If they come back up and sit down, I'm going to move the computer. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, please wrap up your conversations. Our friends online are coming back. Thank you, ladies. Thank you. I'm happy. You too. I'll never forget your birthday now. Nor I yours. And I will
It almost feels like the air got sucked up.
Welcome back, everybody.
Thank you, Martha. Welcome back. We hope that you had some deep and meaningful discussion, particularly around what it means to deal with our own uncomfortable truth. So I'd like to get some feedback from our online facilitators. What learning or what observations would they like to carry forward from today's presentation? So let's start online. Any of our facilitators online who wants to share an observation?
I'll go.
Okay.
Okay. We had Barbara and we had Mitch in our group. And for question 1, why do we struggle to engage in deeper conversations about difficult questions? We talked about fear, maybe fear of being rejected or maybe even saying the wrong thing. Mitch mentioned that sometimes you're a peacemaker. He's a peacemaker and you want to avoid conflict. And sometimes you can also see both sides. So how do you share that without offending anybody? So that was kind of like the first question. The second one, how do I prepare to be my best self? And that was really kind of like putting yourself in someone else's shoes or to be in a safe place. And sometimes safe places can be starting out with one person, and also to be self-aware of what's going on with you, can prepare yourself before you have the difficult conversation. You know, what comes up for you when you're in that sort of conversation. And then 3, where might we start? with this. It's just like the ladies did, start small, start with one person, share this work of link descendants with people around you, and learn more and let it grow. So that's what we talked about. Do you want to jump in, anybody in my group really quick, Mitch or Barbara? Okay, we're good. Thank you.
And either Harrell or Kate?
Well, Kate and I are in the same group, by the way. I can say something, Kate can say something. We wound up combining groups that we did actually, but so my group was Liz Summers, Emily Smith, Kate, and myself. And one of the comments that was made more than once that people found Reverend Mines to be really, really rather accepting and loving. In fact, being surprised by her genuine spirit and that she could be so accepting in spite of the adversity. So that was taken for one thing. The other thing that was talked about was how oftentimes white people feel very guilty about slavery, feel very guilty about it. At the same time, it tends to stop there being guilty. And someone else was saying that they do feel a need maybe to look further at things than what they've done, and this may be the motivation to do that. Another point was made too that people oftentimes complain about people of color not doing as well as white folks. And someone said, but white people have had a 300-year advantage in doing well. And so it's really significant to recognize also the ancestry, and the history of slavery and Jim Crow and other forms of discrimination, which is still very present in American society, that we tend to not want to look at. We tend also not to look at the North. I made the point that I'm reading a book right now, How the Word is Passed by Clint Smith, who talks about how the bankers in New York were financing enslavement from the African coast to America, and how they financed also the cotton mills and then other forms of slavery. So, there's this North-South division, but the North was also involved very heavily in slavery. Even in New York, there were a lot of slaves in New York at the time, and it's in the 1800s, and but really from 1626 forward. There were slave systems in New York as well, too. We think of New York as being very liberal, where I grew up, by the way. But anyhow, but you learn more about that. So slavery has been pernicious, and with its after effects as well, too. So I'll stop there and let somebody else have a chance to talk. But the group itself was really very, very conversant. They talked openly about matters, and which I thought was really quite courageous, by the way, having difficult conversations. Yeah.
I would like to just one thing, without repeating, and Harrell did a great job of facilitating, excellent job, in fact. One area, a couple years ago, I went with some friends to the Equal Justice Institute in Birmingham, Alabama, and it raised my awareness and my consciousness and my tears about the history of slavery. And it's a phenomenal museum. I don't like to use museum in those terms, but just the history of Alabama and the places there to go to deepen one's understanding and compassion about slavery it's a good trip. It's a good journey to take. Bring your Kleenex, bring your tissues. It's pretty sad.
Well, thank you, online facilitators and online groups. And I'm going to turn our attention to the facilitators and groups in the room. So why don't I start on this side of the room, and either Linda or Jane, what would you like to share?
Why don't you invite him to come up and share?
Okay, come up here so that you can be seen on screen.
And heard.
And heard.
So watch your step on the board.
Place here. Right, stand right here.
Yeah. And if you kind of look forward at the group, you're now being seen on camera.
Well, our group talked about, and some of the things have been already mentioned. So what makes it difficult? Why do we struggle? So there's a thing about white guilt, that it makes it difficult to talk about things, and also what's the use? Why do it? What's going to be the action? So we talk about it and then nothing happens. So there's that side of it. And then how might we start? We kind of went off piste with a lot of the questions, didn't we, in our group, but it was really very interesting. So how do we start? I think thinking about the intention of what you want to get out of it, which is not just to talk about it, but to actually take some action. And sometimes the action can be hard. And sometimes it can be a small step. Openness, have an open heart, and have this idea that we're united. At the end of the day, we're human, and we come together as human beings and not as different people. So anything else I've missed from our group?
Thank you, Linda.
And I just want to say thank you to you guys.
Joyce, would you come?
Watch the chords.
Watch the chords. Watch the chords. Watch the chords.
We took the assignment more personally relative to the challenges that each of our table mates had in their personal lives. Challenges that are deep and are impactful and are, it would seem, almost intractable. And each person spoke to that. And as each did, we realized how layered these things are. And that what's on the surface, then you peel it back and it's deeper beneath that. And you peel it back again and you get to almost the bedrock of this difficulty. And it's only when you get to the bedrock can you begin to come up with how I need to be and what I need to get from this, to have that kind of transparency that most of us really have challenge with. We want to be transparent. We certainly want the other person to be, and yet we don't, because it's scary. It's scary about them, and it's scary for us. So I don't know that we resolved anything, but we sure did do a very good job of surfacing the immediacy and the difficulty of these conversations.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Joyce. Oh, are you okay?
I'm okay.
Okay, it's
Yep,
okay.
we're okay.
All right, Linda Reese. Let's go to this side of the table. You come right through here. There you go. We're gonna avoid cables.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you to all of our speakers, okay? And for you all for participating, and for new friendships that we have started today. We did not necessarily talk about slavery or anything of that nature. What we talked about was communication and the fear thereof, and why it's so difficult, why it can be so difficult. One of the things is, or the reasons is, we haven't found our own authentic selves yet. We haven't found it within ourselves. And once you find your authenticity within yourself, then you're not afraid. You don't have this fear of backlash. You don't have this fear of opening your mouth and speaking up. You don't have this fear of delving into things and finding out why this is happening. And you're able to communicate better with others. Now, me being an ISTJ, I'm sitting there listening and soaking up everything that these ladies are saying and saying, oh, part of that is me. Oh, that's me, that's me, that's me. That's what we have to remember, the me in all of us, to move forward with any of this talk about anything or any difficult conversation. It could be a conversation about, oh, Okay, I've got this land deal that I'm looking at and I don't know how to get, there's two people on the board that don't want me to get this land. And why is it? Is it a financial thing? Is it a spiritual thing? Is it a family thing? Is it a cultural thing? It could have many different things that are driving the outcome. But what we have to do as people is to be open to all of it. Self-awareness. Some of what we see and some of what we hear every day are from people that are afraid because they've not experienced anything. They either grew up in a culture where they didn't talk, or they grew up in a culture where there's a difference between a person that grew up in a culture where there was no language at the dinner table and there was no talk about this and there was no reading the newspapers and there was no sort of, as opposed to someone who was like, you know, this is your job. When you wake up this morning, you watch the news, you read the newspaper, you find you have an opinion about stuff. Okay. That is what makes a difference. Melding those two together is what we're talking about. Those difficult conversations. I don't want to take all the time today, but I do want to share this. Truth telling has many benefits, including building trust, being honest in your thoughts, words, and actions. And all of these things together can help to build trust. That's what we're talking about. You guys built trust in those very early conversations so that all the pieces, when they started falling together, no matter how removed or remote they were, started to come together and to make sense. That's what I have to say.
And I also had a group and we had a really, we didn't discuss directly the painful truth of enslavement. We did talk about in our own personal lives, what are those things that prevent us from being able to talk about our own uncomfortable truth. And one statement in particular struck me, many of our comments were shared by others in this group, is that our conversation is not a battle conversation, but it's a learning conversation. And the attitude that we might bring to that is that this is not about persuasion. It's not about some kind of win or loss, but it's really an act of love and of deepening understanding, so that sets the stage for being able to go forward. So I thank my group for offering their thoughts. And now we'd like to ask Robin, and if you two would come back up here, I don't want to touch the computer, but if you get it back down low, because we'd like to hear their feedback on what they've heard from us today.
Melanie, let her get in there.
Okay.
And then I'll move the.
Okay.
Go ahead. You want to get out of there?
I'm just
Or are you going to
stand
stay
back
there?
here. Yep.
Okay. Okay. There you go, ladies. There we go.
Well, I'm struck by whether it's slavery or a different difficult truth. I mean, some of these same issues apply, right? For me, the thing that really resonated was when Linda, you talked about authenticity. And I think for me, that's a really important point of getting to that. I think and that's a journey, right? I mean, that takes time to get there, to be a place of grounded, authentic self. When I speak of this issue now, I feel like I'm speaking from my heart. I'm not speaking from a place of this is the person I hope to be, or this is what I should say, or this is from my heart. This is who I am. And I hope that comes across. But it took a while to get there. It took a long time to get there. And so, you know, it's hard to have these difficult conversations when you aren't sure of who you really are, what you really believe. Once you get to that point, it becomes easier because this is me, and I'm speaking my truth. You know, it's not like I'm right and I need to convince you, but I'm standing here. You know what I mean? So that really resonated for me.
What resonated for me was the group that pointed out the fact that there are people who don't talk about anything. Mm-hmm. It's hush hush because it's either too painful or there's shame in it. And then you got the families or the situations where people talk about everything and they're paying attention and they're involved. And in not just racism, but in all areas of our lives, it's important to understand that and to be able to communicate with one another, regardless of your background or your experiences, and being yourself. And this is who I am. I was raised to love. I was not raised to hate. I never understood it and never will. And I think if people gave themselves a chance and just try to let go of the things that you've learned, because even when I went to seminary, I had to unlearn some things that I thought was real from church. But a whole lot of things said about church is not biblical at all. It's just sayings that people have come up with. And so it's so important to read for yourself. And there are a lot of Black writers, James Cone, Dr. Bozick, Alan Bozick is also another author to follow. And there's a lot of books out there, but encourage people to read outside of their circle, what they're used to. This would be so helpful because in my adult life, I even learned some even more tragic things that went on that I had no idea. I knew it was bad, but the more educated I became, I thought, oh, whoo, so I had to take a breath and go, okay, God, all right, I know this happened, but what is it that you need me to do? How can I help make things better? How can I help change people and change their mindset, at least trying to embrace the situation and to make this better?
I think for white people, talking about race is challenging, right? We're scared. We're scared that we might say the wrong thing. And I think, there's training, which is good to do, right? There's reading. I mean, there are ways, I think, to educate ourselves, right? But I think at the end of the day, we kind of have to be brave. I mean, it's like, and Robin, of course, makes it easy and is generous and is forgiving. And you're not always going to encounter that. But I do think it's kind of incumbent on us to take the first step. And given history and given all of the privileges and the benefits that have come by being white. So the least we can do is to be brave and try to understand and listen to understand and make ourselves vulnerable, right? So if I say the wrong thing, okay, I say the wrong thing. But I'm trying to listen to understand because I genuinely care. And that's taken a while. But just encourage you to, if you're in that place, take a step, be brave. I mean, it's my experience has been that the blessings that come with it are tremendous.
Did you two deliberately try to coordinate? Because your outfits coordinate well.
No, Melly and I discovered that our favorite color was purple. That's right. And I wear a lot of dashikis. And so I said, I'm going to get a new dashiki for the occasion. I had no idea this is what it is.
Green, it's just the style, I'm telling you.
Thank you.
Well, let's thank Ann and Robin Mines. Thank you.
Awesome for having us. Melanie has just been incredible in getting this organized and worked so hard to put this together. So thank you, Melanie.
The light sign.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I wanted to close with just a couple of brief comments. Our goal today was to experience the possibilities that come with deeper conversations and truth telling. And we so marvel at what you've shown us is possible. Let's use today as just a starting point because we're going to need to continue to do more of this kind of work. It's never just once and done. I want to again thank you both for being here. I've really had the privilege of hearing their story. Probably this is about time 5. And every time I learn something more and go away thinking, oh, there's a way for me to begin. So I want to thank all of our facilitators here in the room and facilitators online. And I also want to thank the DEIB committee for your support in sponsoring the program and for the program committee and Martha's work in pulling this all together today. So thank you all for being here. We really do appreciate your participation. All
All right, and Ray, if you'd pop those slides up for me, please. Thank you. I think we've had a lot of applied learning today, but one of the quotes that struck me was, "Tell me and I forget, teach me and I may remember, involve me and I may learn." So as you go away from your conversations, that's just another thing to maybe think about. Okay, Ray, if you move forward, we want to talk a little bit about some of the stuff that's coming up for folks. And why am I not seeing the slides on the screen? Hang on. I got too many computers going on. Let's get this one tiny. There we go. Okay, there we go. All right. Coaches Cafe this Wednesday. Invite you to keep this conversation going. Maybe some of you will go out and have those tough conversations. You can come back and talk about what that was like. So welcome to Coaches Cafe this Wednesday, 5 to 5:30. Next slide, please. All right, in November, we will have Jane Cresswell talking to us about mastering the International Coaching Foundation, competency markers. So it'll be very relevant for those of you who might be going after your coaching certification. So please come out. We will be back at CCL. Atoria sent me a note this morning, wanted me to say hello to everybody. She's looking forward to seeing you all in November, our host at CCL. All right, and then in December, when we will also be at CCL, Sarah, Jane, and Joyce will be continuing our theme from a little bit from last year with a twist on it, but really looking at the gifts and unwrapping the power of coaching. So again, the gifts that we give our clients, the gifts that we get from them. All righty, so those are a few things coming up. We've also got, whoops, can you go back one?
Sure.
Reminding you all of some of the member benefits. One of those is the SIG that Ray Mitchell hosts for us on every third Monday. So that'll be next Monday, around how to build your coaching business. And another member benefit that we have coming up is, that would be the cue for the next slide. Thank you. Is to make sure that you put on your radar another DEIB initiative. Joyce, did you want to say anything about that? Come up real quick and watch your step.
Clear the cord.
Yes, please, please, please.
I'm on a quest. Yeah, there it is. Remind me when I leave. All right.
Okay.
Those of you who attended Industries of the Blind before COVID, it was, first of all, we had a wonderful turnout, and the experience is mind-blowing because you're seeing people produce, perform, and be as they are, well beyond anything that any of us would be able to do. So that in and of itself is mind-blowing. We will have a panel discussion with many of these folks who talk about blindness as who they are, and well beyond that. It's again, their efficacy is again just astounding, and they come from all matter of backgrounds and times in their lives when they became blind, whether as a child or as an adult. We close with a social in their cafe, and the baristas are blind. Let that settle. December 4th, from 11 to 1, we can't wait to see you and you. So thank you both. Thanks so much.
Watch your step.
All right. I clear.
Okay. And please, again, this is registration information is forthcoming. We will, but again, one of our member, these special programs are part of our member benefits. I think we've got a couple more member benefits. Just a reminder, we have a discount of $500. Anybody who's interested in getting accredited. Next one, please. And in order to help us keep these programs going, please, if you're sitting at a table, just take a picture of that QR code. You do not need to fill it out right this minute. You can stay open on your phone. But please give us feedback. The program committee uses that feedback. Those of you online, you can take a picture of it, or I believe Ray's put the link in the chat. And I believe that that is all from me, just trying to wrap up a nice little package of what's to come, although the bar has been set tremendously, tremendously high by our Diversity, Equity, Inclusion, and Belonging Committee. Melanie, it's been a delight, and ladies, thank you so much. Steve, did you want to say anything to close us out?
Close us out. On behalf of the board, thank you for another great program, Martha. Thank you, Melanie. Thank you, speakers. Enjoyed it. It was great. There's two things I need to say. One, thank you for the reminder there, Ronnie. We have the annual board turnover coming up. So if anybody is interested in volunteering for a leadership position, let any of us know from the board. We'll start into this process in the first quarter of next year, and then we'll have the annual elections for everybody in April. So it's not too early to start thinking about it. If you have a particular skill that you want to bring to the board, let us know. You can contact any of the board members and let us know that too. And then the second thing was, we're always open. So if any member has any gripe or compliment, things we're doing well, things we're not doing, feel free to reach out to me personally. Give me a call, give me a text, give me an email. All my information is on the website, or talk to any of the board members. We meet every month. So we want to hear your feedback if there's anything we can do to improve. And we are constantly changing our organization. So we are very open-minded towards constructive input. I'm looking around the room, but I also should be looking at you guys online as well. So thank you all as well too. And with that, is there any other business for the group? Okay, then we are adjourned. Thank you all.